Hello, everyone, and welcome to Royal News Network's Crown Report. This is going to be a soft relaunch of this program because I loved this program where we could talk about what is going on in the other royal families. Because I can do a little bit at the beginning of the video, and some videos require obviously a lot more explanation. And this is just a great avenue to do it in. So that way we can cover so many different things and so many different little stories because some of them are little, some of them are big, some of them are just like a cute little moment or two. And there's a lot going on. A story that just broke today as well of a secret love child between a royal and oh goodness, I can't remember. She's like a actress or something. He's probably now going to be a prince. She's a TV personality, and nobody was expecting that. Today, from the Belgian royal family, we also have William and Catherine going to the Women's Institute, and a lovely little bit that I want to show again about Prince William and his preference for non nut brownies. I feel like we need to have a bit of a poll here. I don't know how to do that, but that would be lovely to have a poll where we go, who is for nuts and who is against nuts? Because as we get back into this program, kind of the debate I sort of had here is when it felt so formal, it felt a little hard to do because there's so many other things I'm doing. It's like when it's like really formal and strict and everything that it just felt more overwhelming. So this program will be, a little bit like the live stream we will be having on Friday. And I do have an announcement on the name for that because we came to a name. And so we'll do that later in the program. And it is all just so that this is fun. So many stories to go over. And it's not so much of I have to do like, let's see, a ton of prep because I don't have an assistant to do that for me yet. So let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we also have Carol who gifted one Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Carol. We will be watching King and Conqueror, doing a members watch party for that at some point whenever it comes out in the US. It's more of a show about William the Conqueror and the very short-lived King Harold of the UK. This is right before, obviously, the modern line of succession we have now in the British royal family. We also have, let's say, and next week be a live stream, although this will be for everyone, on Martha Louise and Direct Veretta and their Netflix series. Oh my gosh, guys, I cannot wait to watch that hot mess. But thank you so much, Carol. We also have Angela, who's been a member for 22 months, guys. This is going to be so exciting. So let's begin with the big story here, which is that Prince Laurent of Belgium has a secret love child. And this literally broke like an hour or two ago. Very big news. So I will just share with you guys, this is who I'd love to actually chat with at some point. This is a Belgian royal news reporter. And so this is Clement right here, the son of Prince Laurent. And Clement is sort of like, he is actually named after his father's villa. There has been rumors for years and years that Clement was his son. And now Laurent has officially confirmed it, which is really sort of crazy. Now, you have to understand this particular situation with Belgium and how sort of, I think, tough this is to swallow again, because several years ago, it came out that a woman named Delphine was suing His Majesty, the former King Albert, for her royal title. And she wanted to be Princess Delphine, and she wanted to be recognized as a member of the royal family. And so she sued. Actually, her father had to abdicate because of this whole legal process that started, I want to say it was like 15, 20 years ago or something, because he abdicated in 2013 and she didn't get the title until 2020. So this whole situation, they have been working, obviously, there's a huge burden on Belgium in some ways because of an illegitimate child. Princess Delphine goes to Belgian National Day, usually making a fool of herself in the process, in my very humble opinion, because she tends to wear the loudest and most obnoxious outfit humanly possible in order to get attention. Because I feel like for her, it's like, I want attention, I want attention, I want attention. And so we have like that, this is going on again. We have another new royal within the family, a child born out of wedlock, although he was not married at the time. It was pre his marriage to Princess Claire in 2003, but he's kind of been sort of like a thorn in everybody's side. They call him Infante Terrible. He's sort of a I don't know what you he's not a great guy. He was, I think, pretty close with Gaddafi for a period of time over there in Algeria and was like in some sort of like weird land deal there and stuff. Like, so much controversy surrounds Prince Laurent. And so you have the kind of the chaos that happened with Delphine and Prince Albert. And now we have obviously the same thing happening. Prince Albert's situation was a child born of an affair. This is obviously a bit different, but he is giving an interview. So it looks like it's sort of a full court press. Now, obviously, this is in Dutch. So I don't know Dutch. There's subtitles here. But I just thought let's listen to a little bit of this. Maybe if you are Dutch, Chantal, I saw you in the chat here. Maybe you'll know what he is saying. And if you guys want to give this Wim a follow, he does usually the Belgian royals, sometimes the Dutch royals, but he's mainly based in Belgium there.
En wat? Hij zei mijn vader niet. Maar wat, maar nu heb ik een stiefpa. Dat is dan mijn vader. Dat is dan mijn vader. Nee, maar wat? Maar je moet ook een echte vader hebben die u gemaakt heeft. Ja, maar ja, wie is dat dan?
So he is 25 years old. And the quote here says, "My mother told me your daddy is a prince. If he is a prince, what am I? That means my uncle is the king of Belgium." Wendy Van Wanten, who is his mom, says she was naive to think she could keep this quiet. I feel like it's kind of weird, but at the same time, it's that people knew about it, but like until you say something, nobody should know. And Alice Ransom Ray says, "This is a very tricky situation. In the past, I know illegitimate children were no big deal, but these days, sheesh." Yeah. So it's very, when it comes to the illegitimacy of royal children, this is actually an interesting question because in our sort of modern era, a child born out of wedlock is no big deal. And even in way back in, medieval times and stuff like that, a lot of illegitimate children were born. And the reason kind of is that a lot of marriages were arranged marriages. And so I think the thinking process, at least for me, and this may be just me, is that when it comes to a royal, if like the relationship is sort of the result of being forced into a particular marriage or relationship to secure the crown, you're married off or whatever, it kind of makes sense that maybe it's harder to, let's say, balance things in a way because it's more likely that you'll cheat because it's like, oh, I was forced into this and I really like this person over here. Mostly the men, of course. The women were not quite as lucky. But they went over in that direction. And then sort of what's happened is that because marriages are now considered relationships as a result of love, I think there's less interest or less support for the idea of babies being born out of wedlock, basically. Because it's like, well, you should marry for love. So you shouldn't have an issue with staying married to who you want. That's sort of the situation. And obviously, families live long, or people live longer in general. And so you don't have as many issues, let's say, with a child being born and dying prematurely. And so because you have sort of more to work with, basically it's more likely that your child is going to make it to adulthood. It's makes less sense to have illegitimate children in many ways. And so this is definitely just a huge, it feels like a huge shock to me. Obviously, I was not aware of these rumors before, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the last thing Belgium needs is another claim to the throne. Obviously he was way down the line of succession. I don't know quite how the succession laws work, but in theory, he should have a low place on the line of succession. He is his father's third child, so youngest, but he is older technically than the legitimate children that, I shouldn't say legitimate because that's sort of wrong, but it's sort of the language we use because no person is illegitimate. But when it comes to the royalty and line of successions, these things actually really do matter. The dynastic implications are huge. Like you think about, obviously, the lot of talk of, I don't really want to talk about that, but Harry and Meghan is that if they had children born via surrogate, then they shouldn't be in the line of succession. Now, I'm not really interested in debating that argument at all, but I understand the dynastic implications of what people are concerned about, because things can happen, sadly, and things change. I mean, if he's in the line of succession, something terrible happens and he might be in line to the throne. So if you're a royal, you just got to be a bit more careful, you could say. So
Is
let's
misschien een beetje
maybe watch a
naïef
little bit of this.
dat kan stilhouden. Ja, ze zegt, ja, je papa is prins. Die papa is die meneer.
So that is his dad. You can definitely see a little bit of the resemblance there, can you? And the big question is, why is this coming out now? I don't think we know the full context of everything. I'm curious why now. Is it because he's 25? Is it because of something else? Like, if you are in Belgium and maybe you have a bit bigger insight into this, I'm not sure, but it's just, again, very interesting. Like, we have a full court press here over this announcement.
Als hij dan een prins is, wat ben ik dan? Dus dat wil zeggen dat mijn onkel de koning van België is. Tot op een gegeven moment krijg je daar een nummer in mijn ogen geschoven.
Oh, we missed a little bit of that. So there is, I want to say his name is Prince Lawrence. I'm forgetting his name, but he's one of the Habsburgs, and he married Princess Astrid. And I don't think we see. And there's King Philippe. I don't think he had married yet, because his younger sister married before he did.
Ik denk van, dat is gewoon zijn nummer. Dat is gewoon echt zijn. Allee,
I'm curious how
much
he knows, like he's met his family.
En die telefoon gaat over. Mijn hart zat hier. Echt waar.
So this is going to be a whole documentary with interview. Very, very interesting. It's going to be, I'm curious to see how this goes. I would just want to see if there's any more here from Wim. So his question is, will he be a prince of Belgium? So Prince Lawrence has acknowledged symbolically he is the biological father. A DNA test has even been performed, but only with judicial recognition of paternity, no confirmation yet. Clement can become a prince. So we have another prince of Belgium after welcoming another princess of Belgium. And again, this will be interesting because next week I really want to focus on, obviously, the Martha Louise documentary with her husband, Derek Ferret. But this whole situation is sort of a great reminder of how cautious you have to be as a royal, and how really the strength of the throne in some cases is hanging on by a thread. And thankfully, in this particular situation, this is not much of a threat at all, because Philippe has 4 children. He is in a seemingly solid, stable marriage. So this doesn't really affect. Laurent is not liked. He's well down the line of succession. But something like this does destabilize, because as royals, you almost have to act sort of above the fray in a way. And to have this sort of thing is just not then like hiding it. I understand why in some ways it was hidden, but it's like, but they kind of all knew. It's just doesn't necessarily, I feel like, read particularly well. And it does undermine some parts of the monarchy in some ways. Not quite as bad as if Laurent was higher up in the line of succession, or heaven forbid, Philippe or something like that, but it's definitely very serious. And in the case of Norway, like my thought for the Crown Report next week is just thinking, is this the end for Norway? Depending on how bad that documentary is. Can Norway survive? Now, I think Belgium is in a much better place, but Norway, definitely very much a concern. So we'll go on to see, because Wim has this story and he's kind of running with it. So let's just hear more. And we do have Lizzie B gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Lizzie B. That is so kind of you to say. And Wim went ahead and said, Prince Laurent has recognized Clement as his son. Speaking on radio, it must be a relief to Wendy Van Wanten that she can share the biggest secret from Belgian show business and royalty. Rumors have circulated since Wendy's pregnancy in 2000 that Laurent is the father. So we do have an answer.
Eindelijk met dat grote geheim. Ik denk een van de best bewaarde geheimen.
So it's still in Dutch or Flemish or what have you. So I think this is going to be a pretty big story. And does this have financial implications? It's a good question. Another good question. Will this impact the future of will this impact, what Albert leaves? What will he have access to maybe as a prince? Like, these are again huge questions, and one they're already sort of dealt with Delphine. I doubt, or I hope, Clement isn't seeking to be a working royal like Delphine is in many ways, because it's just not needed. So we will see where this goes. And I just am so curious what prompted this change. So this is the two of them, the couple, way back in 2000. And it's kind of funny, he already looked middle age then. So he has not aged well. And he didn't age well at the time. So now we know he has an illegitimate child. And yeah, it's not a good day, you could say, for Belgium in many ways. So this broke, let's see what it said, 5 hours ago. So not as close as I had thought. And so let's see. We have Rika Evers as well, who does the Dutch royals. And so he has a little bit more insight here as well. The two had a relationship at the time that was forbidden by his parents, King Albert and Queen Paula. If he stayed with the model, he would lose his state allowance. After that relationship, he was reportedly admitted to a psychiatric hospital in a broken state, says the documentary maker. Goes on to say those two were really deeply in love, had a relationship for 3 or 4 years, but Albert probably intervened. If Laurent had stayed with her, he would have lost his allowance. And that's Laurent for you. He chooses the money, the prestige. Zune Clement, coincidentally, or Laurent lives in Villa Clementine, said 4 years ago about Laurent's fatherhood. It's fairy tale like that everyone thinks, but fairy tales are just fairy tales. I'm always smart enough to say that I don't care about it. I've been doing that for 20 years. The confession turns out to be a genuine relief so that it no longer keeps haunting me. And he says the entire father story stirs up a lot of emotions. Belgium is thus richer by one prince, His Royal Highness Prince Clement, Prince of Belgium, Prince of Saxe-Coburg. King Philippe wanted to limit the granting of titles, but since Clement is a descendant on the male line of King Albert, the royal decree of 12 November 2015 applies. So Clement does this with his mother Wendy tonight in his first part story. She says, I was naive to think I could keep it quiet. And then we have that familiar quote from earlier. So all this news, very, very exciting. And it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Very, very interesting. I'm curious if he'll start showing up at something like Belgian National Day. And there have been rumors for a lot of years about discontent within the relationship between Laurent and his wife, Princess Claire. And I mean, you got to wonder, how much did she know about this? Obviously, we are overly speculating about some of the aspects of the story at first. But as we go through, definitely there could be, if he did or did not tell her, that could have a huge impact on their relationship. And if they already were not getting along super well, which has been rumored for a long time, I could definitely see this sort of falling apart. But I hope that having this information, you could say, is a bit of a relief for Clement and his mom, and that they find some peace in the process. And hopefully they're not in it for the money, and hopefully they don't go the Princess Delphine route, because I see her and I always think, ooh, you just look a little too desperate to be seen as part. He's younger, so maybe that'll play into it. I don't know. It obviously changes the relationship between Laurent and his children if they didn't know. And so so much to this story. Obviously, a lot of family strife, but very not what I was anticipating today. Oh, I was not anticipating that story. So that is what we have over there in Belgium. We did have the King and Queen of Belgium, Philippe and Matilda. They did a tour with the German speaking countries, which is kind of funny because apparently, although Matilda speaks many languages, German is not among them. So she had a translator the whole time. And I always thought that was super cute. So they went ahead and did that this last week. And so we haven't really seen them this week so far. I gotta say. So I'm curious what their thoughts are on this matter. They both seem like lovely people, so I'm sure they would, embrace him in some ways. But you just gotta wonder, like, will he sort of not overplay things? It's very interesting. I'm just very curious to see what will happen here. It's kind of it's kind of, you could say, like father like son in many ways, as they both had children out of wedlock in very different circumstances, you could say, but still. So that's a big, big story for the Crown Report today out of Belgium. We'll keep it probably tight to the hour because I am reading Valentine Lowe's books to do an interview with him on Thursday morning. So I have to complete reading Power and the Palace within the next 2 days. And I have maybe other videos I want to do and those sorts of things. So yeah, we will have to manage all things well. And Her Majesty says, makes you wonder how many other royal live children out there that we don't know about. It is a very interesting question. How many children are out there? I don't think a ton. I think most of them are fairly smart. Laurent strikes me as somebody, and I hate to say it, that I'm not super surprised he's the one who had this issue. For some reason, it doesn't surprise me at all. But I think, especially depending on the reputation of the person involved. Like Prince Laurent already wasn't like, has already been caught in numerous scandals, always throws hissy fits about things. And so him, let's say, having this issue is not going to damage his reputation much more because his reputation is already really, really damaged. So he's not going to have a super big reaction from this. But when it comes to some of the other royals, let's say King Philippe of Spain, he seems to me a very strong family guy. If something happened and a secret child was revealed about him, that would be shocking. I would be truly, truly shocked. I feel like same with Hakan or Frederick or Philippe of Belgium, Charles. Like there's a lot of people who I would think, oh, I wouldn't be I would be very surprised. And if you have the big thing is if you have a really, really good relationship and people really trust you and think you have everybody's best interest in mind, that you're a great father or parent or whatever, and you like think of Bill Cosby and you totally find something else about this person and it's completely undermined, there's a breaking of trust that's exceptionally hard to get back. And I feel like for Laurent, that is definitely like for other royals, shouldn't say for Laurent, but for other royals, that's definitely a huge, huge possibility. So I am going to be watching the story closely, like the case with Marius. We don't have a ton to update with the Marius case, in case you're wondering, but I was looking for the kind of reference and then I couldn't find it myself, and the day moved by quickly. But his trial, which was announced like a week or two ago, will be held in February. So if you are curious about when that will be, that'll be in February. Marius Borg-Homby obviously facing 32 criminal charges. And this is sort of the interesting thing you could say with the case of Norway and in comparison in terms of scandals, which is that when it comes to Crown Prince Haakon and Mette-Marit, there had always been discussions and talks about her past drug use. And how they met and those sorts of things. So it's kind of one of those situations where with Marius, it was still a shock because they had rehabbed their image pretty well. But when you rehab your image fairly well, but you did have some questions to begin with, everybody's re-examining those questions and wondering other things. Now, when it comes to the case of Martha Louise, she's always been a loosey-goosey, a little bit odd. She speaks to angels, if you are not aware. And so her marrying a very, very weird guy, in this case, the shaman Direct Verret, is sadly not a big surprise. But again, it still undermines the credibility of the Norwegian monarchy. And again, we'll get into this all next week. There will be a live stream probably at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, unless something else comes up about this whole case with Martha Louise and her new documentary. It's called Rogue Royals, I think it is, on Netflix with her husband. We will be watching that. And then the Crown Report will be later. And it'll be a question of, after I watch it, after I see it, what do I think the case is? What do I think this might truly mean? And so then we'll go over it then. But I think it's one to be on the watch out for. There's an old book I read many, many years ago. It's probably 15-year-old publication at this point, and it was called The Great Survivors, talking about, I think it came out in 2011, 2012, talking about the monarchies that had basically survived and could they survive longer. Now, I don't remember everything about the book, and I did finish it, but now I'm like, knowing hindsight is 2020. So reading that book with today's information, I'm curious what different conclusions I'll come to about the strengths of different monarchies, because I think that is a huge question. Are the monarchies strong? So I think that could be a whole episode of just going over which monarchies, have the strengths and weaknesses and various things that I see. I'm obviously not a citizen of Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Spain, those sorts of places, but I am very interested in all those situations and what it means, because I like monarchies and I want them to stay. So I think that's a good question to have. And it's also covered a bit in Valentine Lowe's book. So it'll be interesting, and I think a great kind of segue to kind of combine those ideas, the Martha Louise, Marius. Now we have this Laurent story, and then we have as well, because I saw somebody correcting my pronunciation, so I'm going to try here, Laurent story, and then we also have the power and the palace, and how all of this kind of moves together. Because yes, monarchies don't have much constitutional power, but they do have a lot of, you could say, emotional power. That makes sense. And we do have Alice at Rants and Raves, been a member for 25 months. Thank you so much. Hi, Brittany. Loving the Crown Report. It's such fun. Why, thank you. That's what I want it to be. I want it to be fun. Yeah. Alice also asks here with a super chat, Brittany, are you coming to the UK for the US state visit? It's going to be cool and important visit, and I'm hoping to see cool tiaras. So I really, really debated this, and I did decide on no. Number one, I would have to utilize my contacts, which do exist, to try to see if I could get probably more on the US side of the delegation. I don't know if that's something that would be possible or not, but I did sort of decide to wait at this point. So I will not be covering that. And honestly, as well, if I could not get, let's say, some sort of press credentials from somebody, to be quite honest, guys, I don't think even as a spectator you would be able to see much. And the reason is security will be immensely tight, and Windsor Castle is even more blocked off in some ways than Buckingham Palace. And so there was a carriage ride with, obviously, Emmanuel Macron when he came for his state visit, but I don't think you'll see that repeated with Donald Trump, just for simply security reasons. I think everything will be held behind closed doors, and the Brits are very, very strict about who gets press credentials and access. And what I am aiming for, though, would probably be if the royals come to the States. I think that'll be the avenue I go down, but I might try to see what maybe access or thoughts or anything I can get. I might try to utilize something, but yes, we will see how everything goes. Yeah. Yeah, Michelle says, oh my goodness, that would be a great idea. The Great Survivors. Love it. Yeah, that's basically what the book is called. It was a Times of London guy who wrote it. I have it on my Kindle. And so, yeah, we'll be checking that out. And we do have as well, just because I think this is so much fun, Prince William, the brownie connoisseur. We need some fun in royal watching, because to me, royal watching is fun. There are some serious aspects to it and everything, but I really want to have some fun with it too. So let's listen to a little bit of this here. Hopefully this audio comes through for you guys, because we're trying a different setup here and we may not get it, but hopefully it comes through, because William is very particular, and his wife as well is very aware that he is very particular about his brownies.
And who made the brownies? Anyone made the brownies?
So be in just a second here.
I know my brownies.
So if you saw that right there, Prince William said, I love my brownies. So he is very much a brownie man. And he has very strict those stipulations about his brownies. And this again, guys, is what royals do best. You'll have to give me, I realize the sound's coming out of my headphones here. But this is such a great thing that royals do. They can have cute conversations. It's like talking about a brownie, it's to some of us, I'm sure Meghan Markle would probably think, oh, this is just so boring and dull. But no, this is really, really, really cool. And so it will be, I just love the idea and love this little conversation. And we get these little snippets of who they are at home and how Catherine apparently at least very quickly learned that there's certain things that she must do with brownies.
You put nuts in them. Never put nuts in them.
So I think we missed a little bit of that, but William says, never put nuts in brownies. Never, never. So that is just hysterical. I did see your question here. Metaboli says, can you please turn up the volume when you show up clips? I tried, but I just don't know how. They've changed up. So I streamed through this program called StreamYard, and it's just sort of they had an update, and so it just kind of gets, I think, a little wonky. Because one time I recorded a video and played the sound, and I had it up to full volume, and I had to go through the whole interview with Meghan Markle and Bloomberg and turn down the sound volume so when it like blare out your ears when it went in and out. But this is a very cute conversation. I don't know if we'll get this because I don't know if it's in this conversation or something else. But William in particular was asked as well. Dan Wooten, when I was on his show today, shared that with me, and he was talking about Louis. So this might be here. And I thought it was a really good conversation to have. And one, again, that shows, I think, William's maturity and understanding that Louis, because he seems to be more rambunctious, and it just sometimes comes to birth order. The first child is, typically or stereotypically a bit more stoic, and they listen to maybe their parents a bit more and those sorts of things. And the younger children, or the youngest child in particular, can tend to be the wilder one. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is. And I thought was really, really interesting is how William tried to frame Louis. So hopefully we will get a bit more of that here, but let's go ahead and listen in.
Good morning, everyone. Margot. Margot, here we go. This is going to be quite something, Margot. I gather it's got some kick to it.
All right. I don't think that's it, but William is definitely enjoying all of the treats there. It might be. Let's try this one.
I did actually say who I was meeting. She would not tell anybody out there.
So I'm not sure where exactly he got the little quote, but what I really love is that William is trying and very aware that Louis could develop within the media and the public's perception a reputation as being wild or reckless or anything like that. And he's trying to temper it by kind of pulling it back and going, well, there's a 5 years difference between George and Louis. And I think because of his older siblings, Louis has been pulled out more. And I think Louis, because there's a bigger age gap between him and his older siblings, that I think he was a little bit, he's definitely had the baby status. So he was maybe a bit more baby, not in a bad way, but Catherine knew this was going to be her last baby. And so, you sometimes cling to them a little bit more because you're like, oh, this is the last one. And so because of that, I think Louis may have not really any issues, but he's just more rambunctious. Everybody's personality is different. And so I would really admire William for trying to kind of make sure to walk that back. And he doesn't want another Harry situation to pop up. And I will also say here, this is kind of a good way to sort of, you could say, segue into one of the things I wanted to talk about here. And we do see Catherine and William both in mourning attire because we did just lose the Duchess of Kent. And there was an interesting thought I had, and I almost wrote a whole thing about it for the Crown Report, but I actually put in something different. But I really think her loss, I mean, it's not unexpected. She's in her 90s now, so it's kind of that's just part of the process of somebody getting older in many ways. But what's sort of, you could say, interesting and illuminating and those sorts of things is sort of the passing of an era, the end of the time period around Queen Elizabeth II. So I'm just pulling up a picture of the Duchess of Kent here. This is an older one since she obviously kind of got away from royal duties after a while. And I think she was a lovely, beautiful woman. And what's sort of really interesting is that she represents really the era of Queen Elizabeth II. And because she represented really that era, her loss, and I'm sure at some point the loss of the Duke of Kent, and to a lesser extent the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, because they're more like Charles's age. But we also have Princess Alexandra of Kent. Once sort of the Kents go, in many ways, we are sans the Queen's generation. And it represents, I think, in so many ways, as Michelle says, history is fading before our eyes. It really is. You think of the generation of World War II and Holocaust survivors and those sorts of things. Like some of that generation is slowly fading. And I feel like when I look at the Duchess of Kent and her loss, it's not just that she was an amazing member of the family who really took the idea of, I want to step back and I want to embrace the life of Catherine Kent. She was not so attached to the title that she couldn't live without it. That we don't really have that, I feel like, in some ways, same sense of service because it was just such a different era at the time. I thought it was really interesting to consider that because obviously Queen Mary was still alive when Queen Elizabeth became queen, that she still represented kind of echoes of the Edwardian court and the court of Victoria, the queen. And the kind of the strict, you could say, protocols that are in place because of sort of those later years of the Victorian era and those sorts of things, and sort of the cloistered and very formal and stiff, you could say, some aspects of the British monarchy, which I feel like very much kept through the entirety of Queen Elizabeth's reign. And when we look back at her loss, 3 years ago now, it's sort of debatable. It's, I think, an interesting and you could say thought-provoking question, which is that would it have been better in some ways for the British if, I mean, she never would have, but would she have, let's say, abdicated or something? Would have that been better in some ways? Because I feel like the Brits are still really struggling to kind of figure out where the modernization, kind of where they want to fall in the modernization divide. And I'm just so curious and curious and curious where, let's say, we'll go with, because I feel like Charles is still holding the line of Queen Elizabeth, and William, I think, will be the big change maker. But how much will he change? What will that change look like? I am very, very, very curious what is going to look like. And I just can't wait to see what that becomes, because there is so much of a question. And the Duchess of Kent, of course, represents that more of that Edwardian era, a smidge. Obviously, she wasn't born during that time period by any means, but it still is an echo of that time period. And the long reign of Queen Elizabeth, in some ways, I feel like stunted somewhat the British monarchy. And I'm very curious if, in one of the ways, if William could slowly again modernize without going too far, is introducing voluntary abdication after a certain period of time. I don't know if that would be something of interest to him, but I am very, 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 very curious if that is something of interest. Because I think when I look at more the Dutch and the Danes who have had voluntary abdications, for like non-scandal reasons. Obviously, we had ones in Spain, Belgium, which actually did very well as well because both of those kings are still alive. And at least in the case of Juan Carlos of Spain, still very much causing trouble for the current monarchy. But when it comes to the Netherlands and Denmark, it seems like it's really sort of a great way to kind of transition power in a very positive manner that kind of suits everyone. So I'm very curious if that will be something in the future. Queen Elizabeth would have never done it. I know because of the abdication and everything, she would have never done it. But I think in some ways, the royal family wasn't always benefited by her long reign in some ways because they feel very behind the times. They're slowly kind of trying to figure out again what the modernization like soft spot is. And that takes some time. But it's just sad to consider the fact that a woman close to Queen Elizabeth, Princess Margaret, and maybe by a lesser extent, the Queen Mother, Princess Marina, who was the former Duchess of Kent. And I always like it when I'm looking for stuff for the tiara videos and I'm looking through all these British Pathé videos of the women in their tiaras glittering, going to movie premieres. And I'm like, oh, I really want that back. I know it's a little bit excessive and obviously talking about modernization, but I miss some of the glamour that royals brought. That was definitely still part of that time period of the Duchess of Kent. And I think she's also a great example for the future of what it means to be royal if you don't want to work for the institution anymore. Because the Duchess of Kent, if you're not aware, decided she converted to Catholicism in 1996 or maybe it was 1994. I feel like I kept getting different dates for various things. Anyways, she decided to leave as a working royal and she wanted to teach. And she was perfectly fine and perfectly happy to go by Catherine Kent. Now, in the court circular, she'd be cited as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent. But in her private life, in her private, let's say, writings and everything, so if she sent a letter to somebody, the headline would be Catherine Kent, not Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent, unlike somebody in California who left the royal family 2 years ago, barely served, and still continues to harp on that title. I think Catherine Kent is an example of where to go. And if somebody decides to leave, because again, you do have the right to leave the royal family. If you decide to leave, your either titles are left at the door voluntarily, you volunteer to do that, that is part of the requirement, or they are stripped from you. Because I think if somebody does the Catherine approach and is like that, then hey, just let them keep the official everything and they just go by what they want to and nobody has an issue with it. But, very much as we've seen this week with the Cosplay Royal Tour, which I'll probably have to do a video about because I do want to talk about it. And I got a lot of other things to do today too. But we'll get to everything. But what I feel like is the big critical issue here is that you cannot have a competing person claiming a royal title, doing sort of cosplay royal duties, and acting as if they still represent something other than their own personal business, professional interests. That is a big problem. That is a problem that must be solved. You will not have as gracious a person as the Duchess of Kent all the time. And the royal family needs to figure out how to deal with that. And they haven't quite reached that yet, but her loss is definitely a big one. And we do have some pretty big news for her funeral arrangements as well, because since she converted to Catholicism, her funeral will be held at Westminster Cathedral on September 16th. So actually, guys, next week is going to be packed because we have the UK state visit from Donald Trump. We have the Spanish going to Egypt for a visit. We have the funeral of the Duchess of Kent. We also have Prinsdag's Day in the Netherlands. And I want to say maybe even something else. So we have 4 or 5 things next week. So it's a big week. Again, everybody's sort of starting to get back to work after the summer break. But it will be actually a very historic funeral because for the first time in 400 years, a British monarch, a king, will attend a Catholic funeral in an official capacity. And so I thought that was like a really interesting note. And I also love that even though she decided to convert to Catholicism, she told the queen this wasn't a secret. They discussed it and she made that decision herself included the appropriate people. There were questions, obviously, about succession, but was determined that because the Duke of Kent was, and she was were Protestant when they got married, it really didn't affect their children and his place in the line of succession, although some of her children have converted. So I think it's lovely to see. I'm anxious to view her funeral. Gosh, it'll be next week. Oh yeah, and the Directorate documentary. Sorry, I'm looking at next week. Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, will be an absolutely packed day because we do have this funeral. We also have the Directorate and Princess Martha Louise documentary. So that will be next week. Lots of things going on the next week. And we do have Dizfan asking, thank you so much for the super chat, saying, I don't understand the online backlash of the question the lady asked when talking about Prince Louis. She was simply going by what we see in public. Yes. And like it can be, I totally understand that that is something William and Catherine have to practice on how to answer because, you know, maybe he is a little bit, you could say, of a very, very, very rambunctious compared to his siblings. And that's totally fine because some kids are and grow up to be obviously perfectly fine. But I think what William is sensitive to, which is very, very smart, is the perception of Harry and what has happened to Harry, how Harry has behaved and everything. And then William is very, very conscientious of that. And hopefully really just doesn't want his brother's terrible reputation and, you know, being the younger child, the younger son to impact his son at all. And I think that's an admirable thing to do. You can't control what the people say, but he very deftly, I thought, I do apologize for not getting the clip, very deftly navigated the question and managed to say, you know, he likes to rib his older siblings. I mean, what younger sibling does not want to drive their older siblings insane sometimes? Like that's sort of the gift of being the youngest in the family. And so I feel like they have a very natural family dynamic. And yeah, Louis had a bit, you could say, of, you know, because children are all different. I would imagine he's pretty strong-willed. George might be, but just in a different way. That's the thing. Some children may really act up and be, let's say, a child that pushes back in some ways, and some children may be, you know, doing it in a different manner. And so children are all willful. Like as a job as a parent is to figure out how to discipline and navigate the challenges of raising each child because you have things that you do follow, but every child is different. Some children, they can be in a timeout and like that is a lesson for them. Other children, you know, I was spanked as a child. Just saying. I know some people have an issue with that, but I just see nothing really wrong with that because it's done always, at least the way my mom did it, in love as a disciplinary corrective measure. And I think it worked very effectively. So, anyways, if you're familiar with the Dr. James Dobson approach, then you shall see. So yeah, we do have Royal Daily Tea. Thank you so much for checking in. Brittany, did you see the statue of Queen Victoria torn down in Canada by rioters? I have not seen that. I don't know. That might be something new that we have going on there. But I mean, there's just so much chaos going on in the world sometimes, and that it does impact royals. And I mean, I know there's a lot going on in the UK. I can't speak to all of it. I was listening to some people talk about kind of the craziness of policing thought. And what I find interesting, and I will say this because as a historian, I find this to be immensely true. And never once has it really been false, which is that human beings aren't the greatest. And we all have faults and we all do things, let's say, we shouldn't do. And what I see is sometimes is that they perceive certain groups of people, oftentimes people of Victoria's era or the era before, and they see the colonizing efforts and want to call them terrible, horrible people and sort of punish their descendants as a result. And I find that to be very, very not fitting with what history is. You're supposed to learn from history. History is about learning from it and learning that not everybody was good. You can't, you know, put one camp as I mean, there's exceptions to this as there are exceptions to everything. But there are so many idiosyncrasies to everything and so many inconsistencies because human beings themselves are inconsistent. So even there's honestly not an innocent party and a perpetrator party all the time. It's just a more complex thing than that. But some people just want to punish people of Victoria's era. I mean, I was reading Valentine Lowe's book last time, and it talked about how she pushed through an entirely parliamentary effort to name herself Empress of India. Why? I don't know. She didn't need to be Empress of India. Everybody thought it was a little nuts, but she ended up getting her way. It was really unnecessary, though. But that's what happens. And sometimes people see that as a very negative thing about Victoria. So very sad people hating on their own history. Because trust me, you can find bad people on all sides. You really can. There's no, I mean, obviously, I would say in World War II, the Allies were the true victors and the true right party. But did they do bad things in the process? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. There's even a whole, I can't remember the entire situation now, but there's one particular historical event where the documents related to it are under seal until 100 years after the incident. And they do that so everybody involved in it is dead. And if everybody involved in it is dead and then they tell you what happened, the incident was bad and they looked bad doing it. So I tend to go with the process always of, and then this just goes back to a verse in Romans, and now I can't remember the exact reference, but like all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All human beings are sinful. We all do terrible things. So anyways, that's not totally the question, but we'll go with it. And Carol says, why is the letters of this is why the letters of patents need to be updated. Yes. And so obviously that's more of a Harry and Meghan related thing, because the reason we talk about them in relation so much is because they are such a, you can call them a litmus test for what the future of royalty looks like, because they're doing and pushing all the buttons normal people don't push. And so this is your test. How do you deal with this unprecedented situation? How do you manage it? How do you fix it to make sure not only that it doesn't happen again, or to eliminate the threat right now, which is the kind of the undermining of the monarchy in general, but how do you prevent it from happening again? Those are the two things. And you know, and what I mean is make sure Harry can't use his titles to basically undermine his father's reign and try to be a secondary king in the country. That's basically what he's doing. It's really crazy. So thank you so much, Carol. And Gretchen did ask, did people see the lovely tribute to the Duchess of Kent on Wimbledon's website? It was so lovely. I did see a little bit of that, but I didn't get a chance to see, you could say all of it, but I did see a little bit of that for sure. And so, guys, we have, I pulled up different things to talk about, and now I missed it from the Swedes, because I had the whole Swedish, it was a Riksdags day in Sweden. And so they went to, here it is. They went to the opening of Parliament. They do this every September. And I always, again, guys, I always love these kind of events. They're so fun because I love seeing all the royals. We did not see Princess Sophia yet. She's really still not back to royal duties, but I did like their outfits. So I thought I would share them arriving. They're in Stockholm for this day. They usually always wear black. I love her dress. I think it's an awesome dress. And Princess Matt in the background as well. And Queen Sylvia. And Prince Daniel here. Prince Carl Philip. And then Madeline is greeted before her husband because she is the blood royal, as they say. And we don't really need to see the grape advertisement there, but always excited to see the royals out and about and doing the fun things. And I think actually Victoria is really rocking that look for sure. I'm just, guys, looking for a little bit of, I found some nice pictures of the event, and I can actually tell you where some of these at least are, because they're arriving to the chapel that's in the palace, I believe it is. And then this, we have Victoria here, and this is actually Stockholm Palace right behind her. So it looks like her dress is navy. They usually go with dark colors. There's sort of a better look at Princess Madeline's outfit. And then them at the sort I wonder what Madeline is reacting to. And then they go to Parliament at some point here, which is where they're at. think the king, I'm not sure if he gives a speech. I think he does though. And then there's Victoria down there more on the base level with everybody. And then Chris still having, he doesn't know Swedish quite yet. So he's listening on his headphones. So I just thought that would be fun to see. And yeah, Carol says, Crown Princess Victoria and Princess Madeline look beautiful. They do. They do. I actually like Victoria's look, and I don't always like her look at all. But I did think if there is anybody here from Australia, guys, I do have a fun little video thing I thought I'd share because I saw this and I just thought this was kind of hysterical. And this is Queen Mary at a recent event here on the coast there of Denmark. So she's getting the flowers from the little girl. The little girl gives a little curtsy, which I think is always adorable. And so Queen Mary greets everyone. They get some pictures there. And they're trying to get the little girl to come over and stand next to Her Majesty. Her Majesty is in a Zimmermann top. I'm not sure about the skirt. Not totally liking Mary's fashion recently. I don't think this totally goes together. But we got to get to the end here because listen to what happens when she walks in. I don't know if you heard it, but he goes, Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. So I think must be some sort of, let's say, Australian greeting that she's getting there. I just find it to be really, really, really cute. And so I just thought if you guys hadn't seen that, I would go ahead and pull that out for everyone. So it was like, you could tell she wasn't expecting it. So yeah, Polish and Needle said Princess Madeline's children must be multilingual like their grandma, Swedish, English, possibly French and German or Spanish. Yes, so they would definitely be aware of Swedish and English. Obviously, they spoke English in Florida. Their father speaks English. So I'm sure at home they speak English quite frequently. Their father, I don't know if he knows German, but he actually got EU citizenship through Germany. And I'm not sure beyond that what his language preferences are, but they've obviously lived in London, they lived in New York, they've lived in Florida, now they're back in Sweden. And so they have this sort of multicultural aspect to it. And I'm really looking forward. Obviously, next week, like I said, guys, a couple of really big events. Donald Trump's state visit will be in Windsor Castle. And I don't anticipate it really being like, if you want to go see it, like, you can definitely try. I just imagine based on, I'm positive he did not get a carriage ride last time. I don't think he'll get one this time. And that's not because they're trying to, let's say, be like, that they don't like Trump or something. It's just simply security. They're slow moving things. They don't really have a lot of protection and those sorts of things. He goes around in the beast. Last time, I think he went to the event in a helicopter. He would helicopter backwards and forwards, I think, from like the ambassador's house to Buckingham Palace, I think it was. And I imagine I think he'll stay at Windsor Castle this time, but we'll get much the same in terms of that. He won't be out and about much. And you are welcome, of course, to try. If you are in Windsor area and want to see if you can see him or see the royals or something like that, you're welcome to try. I just don't think it'll be easy, if that makes sense. And so very excited to see that. We'll definitely get tiaras. And so I know Carol asked, will we be doing a live stream on the fashion? Yes, we will be doing a fashion live stream because we got to do a tiara watch, man. Tiara watches are the best. So we'll be watching for the particular tiaras. And then after, and see what they have. Again, I will say right now is that if my personal preference, the one tiara I'd really like to see Catherine wear is a Persian turquoise tiara. So I would love it if we got that. I feel like turquoise and the States kind of go together. Usually when we see royals for these particular events, usually they match their jewelry to whoever they're hosting. If there's a possibility there, there's not like, in Sweden, it's quite easy because they obviously have huge connections to the French. And so when the French come to visit, well, you pull out all your French tiaras because the current family is descended from a general of Napoleon. I still have to research how exactly that came together. And it's going to be so you just had to pull out all those tiaras from that time period, which they did. This particular visit won't be quite as much, but yeah, it will be interesting. So, Stephanie shares what obviously was kind of, I'm sure Mary knew when it was said to her. Says, I'm from Mary's hometown, Hobart, Tasmania. Yes, a chant we give to supporting our national sports team, but particularly for cricket. So, I'm sure somebody's like, oi, oi, oi. I'm sure she's like, like a little bit of home. Because I always thought, because Tasmania is so far away from where she ended up, she's about as far as away from humanly possible as where she started her life. And between Tasmania and Denmark, huge leaps in weather and those sorts of things, and environment and language and culture and everything, that I just always thought that it must be, I would always thought she maybe had one of the harder adjustments because it's so different. Maxima, obviously a bit similar because she's from Argentina originally. And so, yeah, just some interesting things. So we will go ahead and sort of wrap it up. Oh, also Spain will be in Egypt next week. And we did have, and I will mention this real quick. Let me go back and see my notes here, what I forgot to mention, just a couple of things. So we will see on Prince Dog's Day next week, we will see all three of the king's daughters. So Princess Amalia, Princess Alexia, and Princess Ariane. And they will all be there for the first time. Ariane graduated from high school last year, and she'll be taking a gap year. And so we may see her on some more royal engagements this year. As she's able, she'll be traveling and working. And then this weekend, she also participated in City Swim Amsterdam, raising money for ALS research. Now, what's kind of funny, and he got criticized for this quite a bit on social media, was that King Willem Alexander, her dad, donated only 25 euros to her fundraising efforts. Now, I will say there's kind of a twofer here, because I do agree with the principle that if your child is a royal and let's say they're trying to raise money for a charity and figuring out how to do that without relying on their parents too much, I think that's a good thing. But could he have reached into his wallet and donated 100 euros? I think so. So he does get a little bit of criticism for that, but she did a city swim in the Amsterdam canals. I'm very curious. Oh, and I forgot to mention Chantal. Chantal, one of our lovely watchers here, went to the recent engagement of King Wilhelm Alexander and Queen Maxima there, and she shared some pictures with us. So I do just want to share those with you guys because she was right there, super close, got some amazing, amazing pictures. And I love this so much, guys, because I'm just so excited. When royal watching, I feel like is so fun. You learn something every time. So here we have, these are from Chantal there, King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima. They are in the municipalities of Leistad, Alamir, and Zeewold in the southern part of the province of Flevoland. The regional visit is to highlight sustainable and livable future of a growing region with room for high quality employment and provisions. So it was obviously raining. Apparently, she told me that they were an hour and a half late, probably in part because of the rain. Here's Willem Alexander coming their direction and Queen Maxima right behind him. And there we got this lovely picture of the two of them. Honestly, Max is one of my favorite royals because she just seems like so much fun. And I really loved this picture of her walking in the rain, which we used for a thumbnail. And then we got another one here of her walking. And I think actually this is the one I used for the thumbnail, which was awesome here. And so she chatted with some people in the crowd, and Chantal was so close, guys. She was so close. Maxima here looks lovely. Oh, she has those like upside down tulip earrings on. Ooh, this is so nice. I feel like I'm getting even better pictures than I do when I'm looking at like Getty Images and stuff. I'm like, yes. And she also got the shot of the shoes. If you guys know me, you know, and watch Royal Fashion News, one of my favorite things is when the photographers get the shoe shot. I don't know why, but I really love it. And then she got obviously some gifts from the crowd here. Willem Alexander is further down. And then Maxima, you know, she's so animated that I just feel like that's a very Max face we got there. And then we have her posing with a selfie with somebody a little bit. You can see the girl there holding up their phone so they can get a selfie. So thank you so much, Chantal, for these amazing pictures. These are so fun. And yeah, I would just want to say, and Alice says it right here, the RNN crew should I'll be RNN foreign correspondents for Brittany and send her all our pictures and films. So yeah, I was gonna say, because I think this is so fun and I love hanging out and watching the Royals. I know it's a process of not expecting anybody to do this much anyways at all. But what I wanted to say, guys, if there's anybody, if you go to a Royal event and happen to get some pictures, if you want to share them with me, I will be happy to share what we get. And I am so excited to do that because it is so fun to get these like more personalized interactions rather than just the main pictures. But obviously, waiting for a Royal, you might wait 2.5 hours in the rain. Not wishing that on anyone. So, because that is so sweet of you to do. So it's like, if it's something you're doing anyways, obviously you don't have to make like a special trip if you don't want to. But I just think this is absolutely awesome. And if anybody else, you go to a Royal event, happen to get a couple good pictures and you want to share them with RNN, we would be absolutely happy. I say we, even though it's only me, but it would be so happy to see it. And Chantal said it was so much fun, except for the rain. I feel you. I feel you. I have been there and I'm so glad you had fun. Because to me, I was just looking at the pictures going, oh, this is so fun. She was so close. And I was like, oh, I hope you got to maybe shake their hands or something. But it's just so, I think Royal watching's so fun, guys. I think it's so fun to see them in person, know that they're kind of real and get that interaction or see them interacting with others. It's just, it's just fun. And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And that's just part of the whole process. And so thank you so much, Chantal. They were absolutely great. And I just did want to say as well, guys, we will be doing the Friday afternoon live stream. And I think I've kind of decided on 2:00. Don't hold me to that. But I know, for example, that when it comes to the Sidley twins, I think they do something at 1 p.m. Pacific, which would be 3 or 4 p.m. or 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And usually our live streams are 2 hours. So obviously, people will be working at that time in the States. I totally understand that. Although sometimes people can listen in. I know somebody who I watch a live stream every week that starts at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time, which means it's starting business for pretty much everyone. And it does really well. So obviously it's a big thing. So Squirrel Lot says, what about Thursday? I think I'm just going to stick with Friday. That way we can wrap up like the whole week, basically. It's kind of the idea, but I did want to say, and let me make sure I give credit to the correct person because I put it out on the comments because I feel like, especially because this week, there's so much going on and so much to pack in. And I'm really worried about making sure I get Valentine Lowe's book read completely because I'm only 37 pages in. And I'm talking to him Thursday morning. So I've got a lot of reading to do. And I really like to read the whole thing. And Stepanka Sobokova put on my post asking, hey, what ideas might you have for the name for our live stream? And she said one word. I'm like, oh my gosh, and somebody else might have said it too. But Stepanka is the one that came up real quick. And this is what the name of the Friday afternoon live stream will be, which will probably be uploaded it'll be uploaded on Saturday at 10 a.m. the next day. So it's like it'll be live and then we may make it unlisted and then put it out. And so as if people still like the Saturday morning, if they like that to be part of their routine, they can still basically have that as part of their routine. But the name for the program, I'm so excited to say. And Stepanka, you greased it correctly and it got me thinking, oh my gosh, it's so perfect. It'll be Recollections May Vary is the name of our little Friday afternoon live stream. This will be for everybody. It won't be members live streams. Members live streams will be on Mondays now. So we can do Mondays, member Mondays. So I can do the Mondays thing. And yeah, Recollections May Vary will be the Friday name of the show, which I think is kind of sort of awesome. And because I already have the shirts and everything that says it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is perfect. And it's so good. And I will say, for those of you who haven't maybe heard the explanation, I'll probably do a whole video because obviously we don't have a ton of people on for this live stream. But when it comes to finding more of a balance between, you know, personal life and professional life. It's just become Saturday has become a little bit harder to maintain, especially in the lead up to the holidays, because there'll be events on Saturday morning and I just can go, I can't do it because I have the Saturday morning live stream. And if I do it Friday afternoon and it'd be like 2 to 4, I have plenty of time to go out and do something with people. I have a time to do things on Saturday morning. And I know not everybody will be a fan, but when you're doing something like this and you're just doing it by yourself, at some point it's like you need to have, especially I tend to pretty much almost always try to take Saturday off or something like that. Just because like if you overwork, you risk burnout and I don't want to get burned out. So for me, I have to sort of try to fit it in somewhere else. Oh, and BMJ says Kenzie has a show called that already. I haven't heard that at all. So I was just trying to think, maybe we'll have to rethink it. Oh, well, either way, it will be somewhat of a fun little thing. And so it's like, it'll be fun. I said, Stephanie says, although recollections may vary, now means lies so people get it. Don't think your stream is about lies or something. It's a fun way of saying something. It's a segment. So it's a segment. If it's segments, it's different than lives because they'll be like called that all the time. But I'll double check it because if I'm wrong, we'll have to change it, unfortunately, probably. Because I don't want to my goal is to never step on anybody's toes. Not my goal at all. So I need that. Oh, and Aram Scout said, we understand we all need real lives sometimes. Yes, we gotta figure out how to balance everything. That's what we're trying to do, trying to figure out. And I'm still excited because it'll be amazing. And yeah. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in for this sort of, I should call it episode like 0.1 or something of the Crown Report, because we're still going to try to figure out how exactly we're going to manage everything. But this is going to be great. Again, mostly focusing on the main royals. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful afternoon and I shall speak to you again very soon. Bye.